In 1981, IBM was the most powerful technology company on the face of the earth. They had more engineers than most countries had soldiers. Their annual revenue was larger than the GDP of over 100 nations. When IBM spoke, Wall Street did not just listen, it obeyed. And in that year, a small team inside IBM made a decision so catastrophic, so perfectly self-destructive, that it would spend the next 4 decades slowly unraveling the most dominant tech empire ever built. They did not get hacked. They did not get sued into oblivion. They did not run out of money. No. IBM built a product so successful that it created 2 monsters, handed those monsters the keys to the kingdom, and then watched in slow motion as those monsters devoured them from the inside out. The names of those monsters: Microsoft and Intel. And the truly wild part, the part that keeps me up at night, is that IBM had every chance to stop it. They just did not think they needed to. If you have ever wondered how the company that literally invented the personal computer ended up selling its PC business to a Chinese company for less than the price of a Super Bowl ad campaign, stick around, because this story is way darker than you think. Let us go back to the late 1970s. IBM was king. Not a king. The king. They owned the mainframe market, which at that time was basically the entire computer market. Banks, governments, airlines, hospitals, the military, everybody ran on IBM iron. They had a phrase in corporate America back then: nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. That is how dominant they were. But there was a problem brewing. Small, cheap personal computers were starting to pop up. The Apple II was gaining traction. Commodore and Atari were selling units. And IBM leadership looked at this emerging market and made a judgment call. They did not think personal computers were serious. They thought they were toys. But just in case these toys turned into something real, IBM decided they should probably have a product in the space. So they did something completely out of character. Instead of spending 5 years developing something through their legendary but painfully slow internal process, they assembled a small team in Boca Raton, Florida, gave them 1 year, and told them to build a personal computer fast. That team, known internally as Project Chess, was led by a guy named Don Estridge. And Don did something revolutionary for IBM. He broke every rule the company had. Here is where the monster starts to take shape. Don Estridge's team, under enormous time pressure, made 2 decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable in 1980, but would turn out to be the most expensive mistakes in the history of technology. First, instead of building a proprietary processor like IBM always did, they went to Intel and licensed the 8088 chip. Second, instead of writing their own operating system like IBM always did, they went to a tiny company in Albuquerque, New Mexico, run by a 24-year-old college dropout named Bill Gates. That company was Microsoft. And Microsoft did not even have an operating system to sell. Gates bought one from a local programmer named Tim Patterson for roughly $50,000, repackaged it, and licensed it to IBM as PCDOS. But here's the critical detail. Here's the part nobody talks about when they tell this story. Microsoft did not sell IBM the operating system. They licensed it, non-exclusively. That means Microsoft retained the right to sell that same operating system to anyone else they wanted under a different name, MS-DOS. IBM agreed to this because they genuinely believed the hardware was the product. The software was just a commodity, a throwaway, an afterthought. They thought the IBM logo on the front of the box was the moat. They were dead wrong. The IBM PC launched in August 1981, and it was an instant hit. It legitimized personal computing overnight. But the open architecture that let Estridge team build it so fast also meant that other companies could study the design, reverse engineer the BIOS, and build machines that were functionally identical. Within 2 years, Compaq released the first fully compatible IBM PC clone. Then came Dell. Then came dozens of others. And every single one of those clones ran on Intel processors and Microsoft operating system. IBM had created the standard, but they did not own any of the pieces that made the standard work. Intel owned the chip, Microsoft owned the software. IBM owned nothing but a logo and a Boca Raton office that was about to become very, very quiet. By the mid-1980s, the clone market was exploding. Companies were undercutting IBM on price while offering identical compatibility. IBM tried to fight back. In 1987, they launched the PS2 line with a proprietary bus architecture called Microchannel, specifically designed to lock out the clones. The market rejected it almost immediately. Customers did not want IBM proprietary lock-in. They wanted cheap, compatible machines. IBM had taught the world to love open standards, and now the world was using those open standards to eat IBM alive. Now here's where the story gets even more painful, because IBM did not just lose the PC war. They actually tried to take back control and failed in the most spectacular way possible. In 1990, IBM and Microsoft were still working together on a project called OS/2, an advanced operating system meant to be the future of personal computing. But behind the scenes, Microsoft was also developing Windows 3.0. And when Windows 3.0 launched and became a massive hit, the partnership collapsed. Microsoft walked away from OS/2, poured everything into Windows, and never looked back. IBM spent years and billions of dollars trying to make OS/2 happen. It was technically superior to Windows in almost every measurable way. It did not matter. Microsoft had the ecosystem. Microsoft had the developers. Microsoft had the momentum that IBM had gifted them a decade earlier. OS/2 died a slow, humiliating death, and IBM was left holding the bill. By 1993, IBM posted an annual loss of $8 billion. $8 billion. At that time, it was the largest corporate loss in American history. The company that had been untouchable just 12 years earlier was bleeding out on the floor. They brought in Lou Gerstner, the first outside CEO in IBM history, and he made a radical call. He pivoted IBM away from hardware and towards services and consulting. It saved the company from bankruptcy, but the IBM that emerged was a fundamentally different animal. The PC division limped along for another decade, hemorrhaging money and market share until 2005, when IBM sold it to Lenovo for $1.75 billion. To put that in perspective, Microsoft market cap that year was around $270 billion. Intel was around $150 billion. The two monsters IBM had created were now worth a combined $420 billion. IBM sold the business that made those monsters possible for less than 1% of their combined value. That is not irony. That is tragedy. So what did IBM actually lose? Let us be specific, because the numbers are staggering. In 1985, IBM controlled over 60% of the global PC market. By 1995, that number had fallen below 8%. Microsoft, which had revenue of roughly $16 million the year the IBM PC launched, grew to over $6 billion in revenue by 1996. Intel went from being a memory chip company that IBM threw a lifeline to becoming the most valuable semiconductor company on Earth. And IBM, the company that started it all, became a consulting firm. A very profitable consulting firm, sure, but a consulting firm nonetheless. The company that built the machine that changed the world could not figure out how to keep making money from it. And the developer community, the enterprise customers, the entire ecosystem that IBM built, they all migrated to the Wintel platform without looking back. IBM had spent decades building loyalty, and the market abandoned them in less than one. Here is why this matters to you right now, today, in this moment. Because the exact same pattern is repeating itself, and most people cannot see it. Look at what is happening in artificial intelligence. IBM tried to get ahead of this curve with Watson. Remember Watson? Beat Ken Jennings on Jeopardy in 2011, and IBM told the world it was going to revolutionize healthcare, finance, law, everything. They poured billions into Watson, and it mostly flopped. Watson Health was sold off in 2022 for reportedly around $1 billion, a fraction of what IBM invested. Now, IBM is pushing Watsonix, their new AI platform, but they are competing against OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and a dozen well-funded startups, the same Microsoft that IBM created. And the broader lesson here is even more unsettling. Every major platform shift produces the same dynamic. The company that builds the foundation rarely captures the value. IBM built the PC platform, and Microsoft and Intel captured the value. Google built Android, and the device makers captured the consumer relationship. The open source community built Linux, and Amazon captured the cloud. If you are building anything in tech right now, whether it is a product, a career, or a company, you need to understand this pattern because it will determine who wins and who gets Lenovo D. So what do you actually do with this information? First, if you are a developer or an engineer, own your layer of the stack. IBM fatal mistake was outsourcing the two most important layers, the processor and the operating system, and keeping the one layer that turned out to be a commodity, the hardware. Figure out which layer of your product or your skill set is the one that creates lock-in and real value, and own that. Second, never assume the logo is the moat. IBM thought being IBM was enough. Brand loyalty evaporates the moment a cheaper, compatible alternative shows up. Your moat has to be structural, not reputational. Third, pay very close attention to your licensing deals. Microsoft's entire empire was built on a single, non-exclusive license that IBM lawyers apparently did not think mattered. One contract, one clause, hundreds of billions of dollars in value transferred. Read the fine print, then read it again. Fourth, watch where the ecosystem is forming, not where the product is shipping. IBM focused on shipping boxes. Microsoft focused on getting developers to build for their platform. The ecosystem always wins. Always. If you are choosing where to invest your time or money in AI right now, do not just look at the model. Look at who is building the developer ecosystem around it. Fifth, learn to distinguish between winning the launch and winning the decade. IBM won the PC launch. They crushed it. 5 years later, they were getting crushed. Short-term dominance means nothing if you do not control the structural advantage. IBM's story is not just a business school case study. It is a warning that echoes through every generation of technology. The most dangerous moment for any company is not when things are going badly. It is when things are going so well that you cannot imagine giving away something important. IBM could not imagine that a $50,000 operating system bought by a kid in New Mexico would one day be worth more than their entire company. They could not imagine that open architecture, the thing that made their PC a hit, would be the very weapon used to destroy them. And that is the real lesson. In technology, the thing that makes you successful and the thing that destroys you are often the exact same thing. The only difference is whether you see it coming in time. IBM did not. The question is, will you? If this story made you think differently about the tech you use, the platforms you build on, or the deals you sign, drop a comment and tell me which part hit you the hardest. If you want more stories like this, where we pull back the curtain on how the biggest names in tech really won and lost, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.